Welcome, my friends, to a few thoughts here in the book of John, especially chapters 18, 19, and 20. It deals with the arrest, the trial, yeah, the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection as well. And to read these all in one part, 18 through 20, is a good way to get the overview quickly. But in this case right here, verses 18 and following, Jesus took his disciples over the brook Kidron into a garden area where he often met with the disciples, and Judas knew the place. So Judas took a band of troops and officers from the chief priests and the scribes and went over to get Jesus and to arrest him. And they found Jesus there, and Jesus said, "Who are you looking for?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." He stepped forward and said, "Here I am." He didn't want the other disciples to get arrested at that time. Nevertheless, Peter takes out his sword and bless his heart and whacks off the servant's ear, and Jesus has to heal the guy. And nevertheless, in the middle of the miracle, in the middle of all the discussion, they tie Jesus' hands up and bound him, and they lead him away to Annas. Now, he's the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. This is a setup and a half, my friends. So Annas begins to question Jesus, and he can't find nothing to get him. So they tie his hands again, and they run him off to Caiaphas. And while they're on their way there, they enter in. They go from the garden to the praetorium, where the courtyard where Jesus was going to be held. And they got to the door of the courtyard, and only certain people can get in there. And John, it says here, let me read you a scripture if I can find it. It says, "And Simon Peter followed Jesus, so did the other disciple. Now this disciple was known by the high priest and went in with Jesus unto the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door." Okay, this is how this thing was. Both of them would like to go in, but only John got to go in because he knew the high priest. So later John comes back, gets Peter into the courtyard, and when he does, the doorkeeper recognizes him and puts the word on him, and Peter denies Jesus right there. Probably doesn't want to get caught. He's right in the middle of the snake pit, you know. So he moseys over there to the bed of coals that these officers had made to keep themselves warm. So it lets you know it was pretty cold in that time right there. So he went over there to warm himself, and doggone if they didn't spot him again. "Weren't you the guy that cut off the ear of this?" "No," he says, I'm not the guy." So he gets nailed again. But the high priest kept on pressing Jesus at this time, but he couldn't find anything to nail him with. So the thing progresses in its way. It goes from one setup to another, from one dilemma to other. First, Peter has to deal with the issue of them taking away his Lord. Terrible thing. Do I act ungodlike with a sword? I mean, hard. Well, what? Well, Jesus set him straight. He got by that dilemma. And then there was the dilemma of Judas betraying the Lord. He had already cashed in with the 30 pieces of silver, bought the Lord out, but now he betrayed the Lord with a kiss, and his conscience started bothering him. Don't you worry, my friends, when the devil's using you, and when he's through with you, you will know it, and he'll leave you certainly in the knowledge of you've been slicked. So what did Judas do? He goes and kills himself. Yeah, this is a terrible story. Read it for yourself. But I don't want to bore you with too much of all these things here. I just want to draw your attention to the dilemma everybody's in. Everybody's in a dilemma here dealing with Jesus, not to mention what Jesus is going through. I mean, one of the guys that was partner with the high priest struck him. Bam! Hit Jesus, so he's probably standing there bleeding. And they can't find nothing. It's taken to Caiaphas, and Caiaphas, he keeps dealing with him, and he can't find nothing. So they decided, okay, we need to do something with him. Let's haul him away to Pilate. He's the governor over the province. Let him do the dirty work for us. And it's just like the religious. They never do it themselves. They always have to have a lawyer. Always have to have somebody to do the dirty work. Because the thing about being a false witness, it's one of the top 10 commandments, that when you're a false witness, there's a lot of destruction happens behind it. And that's why God hates people that are false witnesses, because they bring death through lying and through deceit. They bring harm in many ways. And this is what was going on here. Everybody was being crooked at the highest level, the highest of all religion, the highest priesthood. They were looking for ways to kill Jesus. They had murder in their heart, yet they were trying to keep the religious ordinances of the law. All the time they were doing something against the law, crucifying an innocent man. There's always a dilemma with the priest. You're gonna either believe the truth that's standing right before you doing miracles, or you want to stay associated with man's power and authority in the religious realm. What a dilemma to be in. And by the way, behind the scenes, somewhere in there, you got Ananias standing back in the background, who was one of these secret Jews that loved Jesus. He was a disciple of Jesus, but he didn't want to do it openly. He did it secretly. He went to see Jesus secretly and sincerely, I think. And maybe you have a different opinion. That's okay. But behind the scenes, you got all these people going through the dilemma before the crucifixion beside Jesus. So if I've set this scene, I hope I've said it right, and I hope that you can see this, because I want you to read it for yourself with your pencil. Take your time and read chapter 18, then read chapter 19, then read chapter 20. That's not much reading. And think and circle the things that are important to you. If you keep notes and write them down, write you some notes down, because this is the way the gospel came to you. This is what Jesus had to go through. It wasn't that easy, my friends. Easy for us. By grace we're saved through faith, but that not of ourselves. It was the gift of God that he gave through his son Jesus. My friends, take a look at what he had to endure. Look at the dirty workings of the people that had to crucify him, that were bound to crucify him. They didn't have to, but they just were moved by the devil to do so. And here they were working this work out. Oh, there's so much in these right here, but please read this. And by the way, we'll put some notes in the comments all along the way, and they'll have further reading in them that will constitute more than these 10 minutes can justify. So with that kind of encouragement today, I pray that you get a blessing out of reading this right here, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Controversy, oh yeah, dilemma, big time. Read for yourself. You will enjoy. Okay, till next time.